there, I'm Shelby. If you've never seen my face before, my name's Shelby Lewis. I'm an actor, director, teacher, and audition coach. And of course, a Shakespeare nerd. One of my sweet, sweet subscribers asked what my favorite Shakespeare quotes were. So here are 7 of my favorites and the context in which they happen in their plays. And once you watch all the way through, comment below what kinds of quotes you might want to hear. Today's a little bit of a jumble of all different types, like insults and things that are funny and things that are just have beautiful imagery. But what do you want to hear more of quote-wise? All right, let's dive in. This first one is hilarious. It's so funny. So it's from Romeo and Juliet, the character of Juliet, whom I played when I was 16 years old, 17 years old in high school. And one of my favorite scenes in this tragedy was the really funny scene with the nurse. So Juliet has this BFF / woman who kind of raised her like a nanny, but cooler, called the nurse. And Juliet, after meeting Romeo and being so excited because she's fallen in love with him, they decide secretly in the very famous balcony scene that they're going to get married. So she says, "Great, parting is such sweet sorrow. See you later. I'll send for you tomorrow and you tell us where we're going to get married." But obviously Juliet can't go because she's not supposed to talk to Romeo. So that once Romeo figures out all the logistics of how and when they're going to get married, he can send word to Juliet via a proxy. So that proxy is the nurse, who is in a speech right before this quote. Juliet calls her old and fat and slow and is over it because she has been waiting what she thought would only take about a half hour for the nurse to go and get the news and then come back with all of her dreams come true. But it has taken 3 hours. And if you want to see that monologue, which is also hilarious, I will link it in the description below. So this quote happens within the scene of Juliet and the nurse, where Juliet, after calling this nurse all of these horrible things, suddenly the nurse comes in and she's like, "Oh, honey nurse, what news?" And she is all sweet talking and the nurse knows that Juliet's desperate for this info, comes in and goes, "Oh God, my back, my this, my that." And Juliet's running all around. And, "Oh, do you want a massage? And by the way, what did Romeo say about our future?" So the nurse is just being awful and amazing by not telling Juliet what she knows she wants to know so badly. So the quote I'm about to share with you is right after the nurse says, "Yea, Sue, what haste? Can you not stay a while? Do you not see that I am out of breath?" To which Juliet replies, "How art thou out of breath when thou hast breath to say to me that thou art out of breath?" So breath is used 3 times, the comedy of 3. And I love it because this whole time Juliet has been really trying to stay sweet and positive. Then she just goes, "Ugh, I'm calling you out." And the nurse is like, yeah, you're right. I love that. So my next favorite quote you will definitely recognize, super famous, but why it's my favorite quote is this really juicy clue that happens in the scansion of this text. "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears." Right? We've all heard it or been made to read about it in high school. But what's so interesting about this with the scansion, "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears." So that is officially iambic pentameter, but you wouldn't say it like that. "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears." That sounds weird. So it's an irregular line. So when there are irregularities in Shakespeare in a line of iambic pentameter, it's different than normal. And now we get to see why. So how would you say friends? Friends, right? Just 1 stressed syllable. Romans, how many syllables does that have? 2. And it's stressed at the very beginning. So we have friends, Romans, and then the third word, countrymen, is 3 syllables. So we have 1, 2, 3 as a build. And again, that first syllable is popped, is stressed. And then at the very end, we have lend me your ears, 4 syllables, 1, 2, 3, 4, and all stressed. So this 1 verse line, before it indents down, does the rest of the speech, is a quintessential politician's line. Not only is the substance very politic-y, friends, oh, we all know each other. Romans, you're of this country. And then countrymen, as in the full country, right? Maybe even globally. So it naturally has this build, but now we know textually why it has a build. So I just nerd out about that because it makes it so clear for the actor that this is not only a build, but it is polished. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. And by then, everyone has lent him their ears happily. This next quote is from A Midsummer Night's Dream, which I directed in 2018. It was a complete joy, a total magical romp of course, hilarity, but also a lot of beautiful, soothing images and messages. And one of my favorites is at the very end, which is when all of the action has happened. And we've met a group of actors earlier in this play called the Mechanicals, meaning that they work with their hands, they're mechanics in a way, but they're all amateur actors. And throughout the course of the play, they've been granted an opportunity to perform at the Duke's wedding. And so the big dessert treat at the end of A Midsummer Night's Dream, if you've ever seen it, is that the Mechanicals put on their play, which is so bad. And that's so good. The text is horrible. I mean, it is just the quintessential bad acting done by very good actors to make bad acting look so funny. And the rest of the court, not only are the Duke and Hippolyta getting married, but all of the lovers and Titania and Oberon also are coming back together. But whoever's in the audience, they are laughing hysterically along with the actual audience. And at one point, one of the lovers is just railing on this production. And the Duke, who doesn't speak too much, he's kind of in the beginning and then at the very end, and actually back in Shakespeare's time, usually the Duke and Hippolyta doubled as Titania and Oberon. Fun fact. And so when one comment and laugh too many at these guys who are really trying to do well by this play and put themselves out there, the Duke says something that really sticks with me. And the quote is this: "For never anything can be amiss when simpleness and duty tender it." So Theseus, the Duke of Athens, says this to the crowd that he's laughing along with at these actors, but he has this lovely moment of honoring their commitment and honoring that they are completely bearing their entire souls and seizing this opportunity to do the play as best they can. So I love that, even as kind of a teaching philosophy that gives everyone credit for showing up where they're at right now in order to improve, but also celebrate what they're doing in that moment. Now let's go to one of my favorite Shakespeare plays, The Winter's Tale. This was the first Shakespeare play I was in as a sophomore in high school. I was first lady and had 2 lines and learned to knit because my director asked, "You know how to knit?" And I was like, "I will learn." So I was watching these incredible upperclassmen do these very complex parts. The Winter's Tale isn't done very often, and I think it's one of the best, if not the best, of his plays, but it's not done very often because it is so technically difficult. And I just remember being blown away, not only by the performances that I was seeing of my peers, but the textual analysis coming from my director. All that to say, love Winter's Tale, should be done more. And so I'm going to show you 2 quotes from this beautiful play. And both of them happen in the very last scene of the play. I won't go through the whole plot, but basically, a very jealous king has decided that the love of his life, his queen, has been unfaithful with his best friend. So, love triangle. Because at the beginning of the play, his wife is 9 months pregnant and his best friend has been visiting for 9 months. So, lots of tragedy ensues where he accuses her. There's a court scene. There's an oracle from a Greek god that says, yep, she's innocent. And the jealous king doesn't even honor that. So then the god strikes down his son, and just such devastating consequences for this level of suspicion. All this time, the queen's best friend and a head lady in waiting, I guess, but more like a right hand, like the Dowager Countess of Downton Abbey. Like formidable. This woman's name is Paulina. The cool thing about this play is that the first half is a tragedy and the second half is a comedy. And so at the end of the first half, Paulina makes sure that the king knows what he's done, because he's already starting to repent and go, oh my gosh, what have I done? And does not let up on him for, ready for it, 16 years. So she is now the right hand of the king and makes sure that he repents every day and feels guilty and asks forgiveness for what he did to his queen and his family. So then the second half is a comedy, and they go into like a shepherd land and of Bohemia, and there's a sheep shearing festival, and it's really fun. But then at the very, very end of the play, spoilers, Paulina finally is talking to the king and decides that he has repented enough. And then she says, by the way, I had a little statue commissioned of your queen. And he's like, oh gosh, I'd love to see it. I mean, if you think I deserve it. She's like, yeah. So she unveils this statue of Hermione, just like the Harry Potter character. That's the queen's name. And everyone's looking at it and it looks so lifelike. And the king even says, wow, she has more wrinkles than I remember. And Paulina's like, I have a really good sculptor. They're looking at this statue and Paulina says something like, I can make it move if you want, if you can handle it. And they're like, yes. And so in order for that to happen, she says one of the most beautiful lines in all of Shakespeare's texts, it is required you do awake your faith. If I was brave enough to get a tattoo, that's what I would get tattooed. I love this idea of anytime you are afraid to see something or you are wanting something so badly, but it scares you because you care about it so much and you're not sure if you're ready to take that risk, it is required you do awake your faith in yourself, your faith in the powers that be, honoring that this desire inside of you is there for a reason. So that quote. And the next quote that I love from The Winter's Tale, of many, is just before that when Leontes, the king, is looking at this statue and cannot believe how lifelike it is and says, still methinks there is an air comes from her. What fine chisel could ever yet cut breath? Oh, it's so gorgeous. What fine chisel could ever yet cut breath? And I love the word breath because it sounds like breath. So much in Shakespeare, he uses onomatopoeia. It sounds like what it means. And this line is just so singular and concise and dreamy, yet full of hope, even in its abstract. The idea of cutting breath. I assume that's what a sculptor or any kind of artist hopes, is to cut breath into whatever you are creating so that it is alive and living in this world. Next quote comes from As You Like It, which I played Rosalind in 2015, one of the highlights of my life. I was living in Los Angeles at the time, which is a lot of cement, and I got to come back to this beautiful forest in northern Michigan and play the largest female Shakespeare role in the canon. It was such a joy, and it reminded me how much that kind of nature really impacts me and is necessary in my life. So I'm going to give you two quotes from As You Like It. One of them's an insult. You ready? Jaques, who does the very famous speech, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players, is quite melancholy and snippy and is kind of that person at work that just gets under your skin. And so at some point, that character meets up with the male lead love interest named Orlando. And they have this really tiny scene of like sizing each other up and going, not feeling it. So Jaques says, God be with you. Let's meet as little as we can. To which Orlando replies, my favorite part, I do desire we may be better strangers. Is that the best insult? And they're just smiling through their teeth the whole time. Great. Bye. So feel free to use that next time that person at work is bugging you. And the very last quote is another one from As You Like It, in which the Duke, got a lot of dukes today, has been banished from the court to the forest with all of his men. This is Rosalind's father, and that's why she leaves the court as well to come and find her father. So the first time we see this Duke technically in exile, he is having a great time. He takes in a breath of nature and just looks around and has this beautiful long speech about every bit of nature that he just adores. Almost like when you've been in the office too much or you're doing your emails and then you finally just take a walk outside and it's like your whole world has been opened up. So the way in which he says it, i.e. Shakespeare says it, I think just perfectly encapsulates what I long for when I feel like I am inundated with emails and to-do lists and know I need to just reconnect with nature and thereby reconnect with myself. He says, and this our life, exempt from public haunt, finds tongues in trees, books in running brooks, sermons in stones, and good in everything. I would not change it. So if you ever need to have your life exempt from public haunt, maybe think about going into nature. It's always there for you and always refreshes at a really deep level. So those are 7 of my favorite Shakespeare quotes of lots of different categories. So let me know in the comments below which categories were your favorite, or you want a batch of quotes from a singular play. Let me know. And I'll see you back here for more Shakespeare quotes and shenanigans and speeches and so many things. I love Shakespeare. I'm glad you do too. Anon! Did it. Couldn't find the desk. Anon.